everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm John, and today we're going to be talking about the new Mike Flanagan Netflix show, The Midnight Club. But before we dive into that, if you are a fan of 4K Blu-ray reviews, movie reviews, TV reviews, tech reviews, and game reviews, we try and do them all here on the channel, and nothing will help us out more than by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. So it's becoming quite the Halloween tradition. Mike Flanagan has released yet another Netflix series, and this time it follows Amon Benson's character as she goes into a hospice care to live out the rest of her days on this island where she and a bunch of other young adults who are also suffering from terminal diseases, where at every night around midnight, that's why they call it the Midnight Club, they meet and tell each other scary and sinister stories. That is the basic plot to this miniseries. Mike Flanagan has released 3 other miniseries for Netflix, starting in 2018 with The Haunting of Hill House, then in 2020 The Haunting of Bly Manor. Last year he did it again with Midnight Mass, and now this is the 4th time we're getting Mike Flanagan and his team a Netflix series. And in 2018, The Haunting of Hill House really took me by surprise. It put Mike Flanagan on the map for me. I had heard of Ouija Origin of Evil, I've heard of Oculus, but I hadn't seen them yet. The only film of his I had seen before 2018 was Hush. But once I saw The Haunting of Hill House, that was better than any movie I saw that year. That was even better than Hereditary, which I think is one of the best films in the last 12 years. And is going to be one of the most influential horror films of all time, I think, in it when we look back at it 20 years down the road. And I still thought The Haunting of Hill House was a masterpiece. I thought that was the greatest thing to come out of 2018. Now, he couldn't match that success, in my opinion, with The Haunting of Bly Manor or Midnight Mass, but I bought my stock in Mike Flanagan in 2018. I love pretty much everything he's made. I think him, Ari Aster, and Robert Eggers are the 3 leaders in horror right now, whereas Robert Eggers, Ari Aster float more of that artistic, elevated horror line. I think Mike Flanagan makes a little bit more of a mainstream kind of horror, but yet his horror also, I think, has a little bit more heart to it. I think his message is a little bit more obvious. You don't have to do too much digging for it. He actually kind of beats you over the head with it a little bit at points, but I think that works in his style because his films and his miniseries all kind of have an emotional heart to it, and this one actually might have almost as good of an emotional heart to it as The Haunting of Hill House did. Even though all of his series and all of his movies all at the end of the day have that emotional core to it, I think that this one really does, especially since we're dealing with terminal patients and all of them are pretty young, from about the 18 to 20 range, that these are all, people at the beginning of their lives being diagnosed with terminal cancers or other diseases like that. We all know that a lot of these characters aren't going to make it to the end, so it's really about developing their stories and making us care about each of these characters, because unfortunately, for a lot of them, we do know their fate. And this is Mike Flanagan's shot at an anthology series. So you've seen Creepshow, and more recently, one of the most famous ones in the most recent years is Trick or Treat. So I think that this was Mike Flanagan's shot at an anthology series. And it's funny because it's called The Midnight Club, and they meet at midnight, and it really reminded me, Are You Afraid of the Dark's Midnight Society? They pretty much do almost the exact same thing, except they don't throw sand at the fire at the end, but there's certain aspects that they do every single day. In this case, they drink wine, or some of them can't drink wine, they smell the wine. And that all actually also reminded me very much of another movie I saw a few years ago called The Fault in Their Stars, which is dealing with children, young adults having cancer, and it being terminal. So one of the characters in that, actually, he would always have a cigarette in his mouth, but he would never light it to remind himself, that he has cancer, and, the aspect of, he's still alive. And he also has a thing in that called Death Day, where the day that a doctor diagnoses you to die. I actually have seen this in other movies such as My Life, or in that where, hey, I was supposed to die today, we're going to celebrate the fact that I'm still alive. So that deals with that too. So this took aspects of other things that I've seen and put a Mike Flanagan twist on it. I don't think this was the most original story. It's actually based on a 1994 novel by Christopher Pine, I believe. I really did actually care about all of these characters. And Heather Langenkamp is the head of this hospice that she goes to. And this hospice has a sort of legend around it. One person was there in the 60s, they disappeared, and they survived. They, somehow some miracle happened on this island, some unexplained miracle, and that's what brings our lead, Amon Benson, to the island, because when she gets diagnosed with cancer and she's going to die, she is looking for a way out. She wants to survive, she wants to live, and she looks up what happened on this island. She gets herself transferred there, and she has to unsolve this mystery. Meanwhile, Heather Langenkamp really wants to make these young adults as comfortable as possible. She allows them to all to have the basic freedom. She doesn't want to, basically take away what little life that they have left. Don't treat them like they're in like a prison or a school or something. Let them have that humanity left. And Heather Langenkamp is amazing in this. Heather Langenkamp, we've seen her since the Nightmare on Elm Street films, and she has always been a scream queen, but she really does a phenomenal job acting here. I think this is actually her best performance that I've ever seen her do. And Mike Flanagan has worked with a lot of famous actors. I've every single one of his movies and shows, pretty much since Ouija Origin of Evil. He's gotten Henry Thomas from E.T. to be in there, almost like his lucky charm. And Henry Thomas does have a small role in this. I won't spoil what it is, but he's phenomenal as always. I get so excited to see him pop up on screen anytime he does. Henry Thomas really is an underrated actor in my opinion, and in his small role in this, he does a great job. But for me, the best performance out of anybody was Ruth Codd. I had never heard of her before this, and she plays Anya. And I think Anya is the emotional core of this entire series. Yes, our lead is Amon Benson, and she does a great job leading the series, really helping us. She's the protagonist, helping us guide us through the story. But Anya is her roommate, and she has an arc that I really think that you're going to want to see. I'm not going to spoil anything for you here. I'm trying to keep it as surface level as possible, but she does such a good job really like playing up, that character who's got this, this outer shell. She's built up a shell, she has cancer, and, we got to unravel her backstory, and really everybody's backstories. They do a great job. They did this in Hill House where they kind of Mike Flanagan has a formula for this where they'll take an episode and they will show you their backstory pretty much, and they're the focus of that episode, and then he does that rinse and repeat until you get towards the end of this series, like the last 3 or 4 episodes where he starts to just make sure that we're heading towards a conclusion. And he does that here. You get to see backstories on all of these, but we also get to see pretty much structured at the end of every episode is one of these characters telling their own story that they made up. It's a work of fiction, but you can, just like any stories, and everyone knows anything about storytelling, that every story has at least a little bit of truth to it, and we're trying to figure out where the truth is in each of these stories, because a lot of this series is about storytelling in general. I really think that is awesome, because each of these little anthology episodes that we get in each episode of the series is actually really good. Some of them I think were phenomenal and actually could have been made to films. There's one character, I don't want to spoil, he loves video games, and this is 1995 that most of the series takes place in, so that's the year that the Sony PlayStation came out, and he's upset that he's never going to get to play the PlayStation, and he talks about all the consoles that he used to play, and he's telling a story about working in a game store and how he gets approached by a video game developer to help him develop a game or help him beat a game, and we see it on an old PC, and just all that nostalgic feelings came back, and hearing him talk about PlayStation was awesome. Another kid is telling another story, and on his wall are Terminator posters and a RoboCop poster, and he's talking about old sci-fi movies, and his story is kind of revolving around a sci-fi plot, and I just thought that was great. I really did. I didn't expect to like these. I thought that was going to break up the story. I really thought that the overarching story of this island and all these kids in hospice was going to really be the star, and I thought that I was going to get taken out by these mini stories, but I really wasn't. I really enjoyed all of them for the most part. Some were better than others, obviously, but my biggest issue I think with this is by about episode 7, I feel like the heart of this kind of lost it, and it really starts to, they have to really close out the series, and unfortunately I think they actually rushed that part. This is 10 episodes, and I really felt like you could have cut parts of it, but yet there's other parts of this where they really dragged it out, and then they felt like they rushed it right at the end, like almost like what Game of Thrones then did, where like they're lightly jogging to the end, and all like they go, oh shit, we got to finish up, and they go running towards the end, and a lot of what they built up and were expecting a good conclusion to, I really felt like they rushed it. I think honestly the best episode of the entire series was directed by Mike Flanagan's brother, and that was episode 7. I really think that is where the series really hit its climax, and it really shouldn't have been a 3-episode falling action to really wrap up the series, and I don't think they did a great job wrapping it up in the end, but I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't enjoy my journey getting to the end, and I really think that you guys will too. This is definitely, it feels like Mike Flanagan's show. It's got that score, it's got the way it's shot, feels just like in Dr. Sleep and in The Haunting of Hill House and Bly Manor, and Midnight Mass I think feels a little bit different than this one, but I do think that you can definitely find the creator who made those other 3 shows in here and has made his films. I think overall it's a good show. It doesn't reach the levels of his previous shows in my opinion, but it's still something that I think you're going to have a lot of fun with. I watched this all in one sitting. I was never bored. It does drag a little bit in parts. I can't sit here and tell you that it's a perfect series, but overall I had a lot of fun. And if you're looking for something to watch this weekend, and with the time of the year, you couldn't pick a better show to watch. And this is something that actually I think you could watch with the family. It deals a lot, like, I wouldn't say like young kids, but I think this is something you could watch if you have like a 15-year-old or up. I think that they're going to understand the aspects of this, and it's very much a young adult story. So Mike Flanagan, again, even if this isn't my favorite, I still love what he's doing. He's still, in my opinion, right now, the modern king of horror. I love what he's doing. I love his work, and I really think you should check this out. So overall, if I'm going to give this a rating, I'm going to rate this a pretty solid 7 out of 10. I think it's definitely worth your time. But guys, as always, thank you for being a fan of Let's Talk. I hope you enjoyed this review, and if you did, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and tell all your friends.